Good afternoon. Welcome to the Liaison Committee, Prime Minister. I know that we have a huge number of questions to get through, so if you don't mind, we will start straight away with Hilary Benn.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. You made a very clear commitment in the Brexit Phase 1 joint report to maintaining no hard border, no infrastructure, no checks between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Now, we all hope that will be achieved by a free trade agreement, but you've also committed to a very specific fallback option, this question of full alignment. I just wanted to explore what that would involve. Now, you indicated in your statement to the House that this would apply to agricultural goods, for example. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, can I congratulate you, Chairman, on your election as Chairman of the Liaison Committee.
Yeah.
Yes. If I look at the question of what we've put into the Joint Progress Report on Northern Ireland, of course, there are three stages in terms of looking at the commitment on no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The first is, as you say, that we expect and intend to be able to achieve this through the negotiations on the overall arrangement between the EU and the UK. The second is the second fallback, which you didn't refer to in your question, is failing that we would look at specific solutions for the unique circumstance of Northern Ireland, and failing that we fall into the full alignment, as was said in the progress report. I think sometimes when this is being discussed, people forget there are already specific differences in relation to and specific solutions for Northern Ireland. The all-island of Ireland electricity market, for example, is already in existence. There are already some arrangements in relation to agriculture. But as to what would be necessary in terms of looking at those arrangements, were we to have to fall back to that third option, and I emphasise it is the third option, those, of course, will be a matter that we would need to look at and negotiate at the time. Our focus is on the first option, i.e. now we can start, we've got sufficient progress, we can start to look at the overall relationship between us and the European Union. That is where we'll be putting our work and effort and focus.
Indeed. But since the government's made a very clear commitment to no infrastructure, no checks, no controls, in all circumstances, all three of those you've just laid out, I'm just focusing on the full alignment fallback. And the question I just put again, would that cover agricultural goods, yes or no?
Well, the reason I answered in the way I did is because, of course, that is still in the progress report, but I don't want people to assume that this is the process, that this is the solution that we are working towards.
I do understand.
We're working towards the first one. The issues such as the agricultural trade, the movement of agricultural livestock and goods need for the agri-food industry between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland is obviously an issue that we would have to be looking at. But as to how we will achieve the objectives that we both want to achieve in those circumstances, that will be a matter for negotiation should we actually get into that position. Should it become clear that neither of the first two options are available for us or are going to be possible. I'm sure that we're going to be able to achieve the first option. We've already put forward some ideas as to how we can achieve this. We've published papers on this. And now that we've got sufficient progress, now we're out of phase one of the negotiations, we can actually start to look at these in detail, because the problem we've had so far is whereas we've been putting ideas forward, actually we haven't been able to negotiate or discuss these with the other side in these negotiations because they've been clear we've been in phase one. Now we can actually start doing that in earnest.
So are you telling us that actually you can't say at this stage whether it would cover agricultural goods or, for example, manufactured goods? Because, as I understood it, the purpose of putting in the fallback option was to offer assurance in all circumstances to all of those involved. If you're saying you can't tell us what it covers, then what exactly does it mean?
Well, it means that we will ensure that there is no hard border. How we achieve that in specific areas, in specific sectors, would be a means for the negotiations. That's what I'm saying in my answers to you. We're clear that in terms of no hard border, as I say, we believe we can achieve that in the overall relationship, and we've put forward some ideas as to how that can be done. We're now able to discuss those specific ideas. And this is about no hard border, no physical infrastructure.
But surely, Prime Minister, if it doesn't cover all goods, those that are excluded would then, of necessity, be subject to checks, and therefore your commitment that you've given to there being no hard border, no checks, no controls, could not be delivered. Either everything is in or everything isn't in. It's a very simple question about how this would work.
Yes, and it's a very simple answer. What we are going to deliver is no hard border, no physical infrastructure at the border.
So, all right, well then you can't confirm what it would cover. Can I move on now to timing? Now, the EU Commission has, in its draft negotiating guidelines published this morning, has said that the transitional arrangements should last no longer than the 31st of December 2020. Do you think that that will be long enough?
Well, as you know, I think as you know full well, in my Florence speech, I said that I thought that probably the implementation period would be around 2 years.
Right.
That was what the indications we had at the time. We're about to start the negotiations, and obviously what we've seen today is that position coming from the European Union. We will be in negotiations as to what, quickly into negotiations as to what the implementation period should cover. They've set that end December 2020 date because that covers their current budget plan period, so that has a neatness for them, if I can put it like that. But we will obviously have to discuss, because this is a practical issue about how long certain changes would need to take to be put in place.
But before you can make the changes, you have to have an agreement on the new free trade relationship, which is your #1 objective. Do you think those negotiations can be completed in the implementation period, the transition period? Do you think there will be sufficient time to complete them?
Sorry, you said sufficient time to complete them in the implementation period?
In the implementation period, because, or to ask the question another way, is it still your view that you can complete negotiating a free trade agreement by March 2019?
It is. That is what we are working to, and that is what I believe we can do. And I believe that's important. I believe everybody wants to know on what basis they're going to be operating in the future, such that the implementation period is a practical period which is going towards implementing the agreement that we have with the European Union. I've said, I and other ministers have made the point in the past that, of course, we start off from a different point from other third countries, as we will be from other third countries negotiating with the European Union, because we're already a member and already trading with them on a particular basis. As you will know full well, there is we can't legally sign the new trade agreement with the European Union until we're a third country, until we're out of the European Union, 29th of March 2019. But I believe we can negotiate that arrangement in that time.
Now, that's the view that you hold and the government holds, but the view on the other side of the negotiating table is that the best that's going to be achieved by March 2019 is a scoping of what a free trade agreement is going to cover, and certainly I've met nobody who thinks it will be possible to negotiate all of the details of that by March 2019. Now, why is the government so confident that it can be done when those with whom it is negotiating don't think it can?
Well, a lot is often said about the time that it takes to negotiate trade deals. There are different experiences around the world of the length of time it takes to negotiate trade deals. As I say, the reason I'm confident that we can do this within the time concerned is because we start off from a different point. So we haven't got a situation where country A is coming to negotiate with the EU, not having had any arrangements with the EU before. We come from the point where we're actually a member of the European Union, we're operating on the same basis at the moment, and therefore I think that starts us off from a different position in terms of our negotiations on trade in the future. Of course, we're not just talking in phase 2 of negotiating the trade agreement, we're also talking about negotiating the future security partnership that we want to have with the European Union.
And finally from me, were you aware that no impact assessments were being carried out by government departments looking at the impact, the effect of Brexit on different sectors of the economy, or indeed on the implications of leaving the customs union? Did you know that that wasn't being done?
What I was aware that that government departments were doing, led of course by DEXU, was ensuring that they were in touch with different sectors and continue to be in touch with different sectors that are taking their views on implications in terms of what matters to them. This is what is in the sectoral analysis which has been made available to your committee. That was the analysis that was undertaken and is indeed ongoing. We continue to talk to business. It isn't that there's a point in time where you say, well, what is the impact here? Actually, we didn't produce impact assessments as you've described them. We produced that sectoral analysis. We continue to talk with business. We continue to talk with representatives of all sectors on the issues that matter to them.
Just observe that we're about to publish most of what you've given to us, and I think the public will see there is no assessment of the impact of Brexit on the different sectors of the economy, but we can pursue that on another occasion.
Thank you.